Yep. It's famous yep, the yeppers. Why? Flip that backwards and you got P-E-Y, a pay, right? Like pay, right? Yep. And I don't necessarily always mean money. I'm talking about pay is frequency, currency. Get that aligned in much abundance can connect to your bank or and I don't mean bank as in the place you hold money, I mean your water bank. That's why it's called a bank, is because it borders, the banks border, this is their occultic reason they call them banks, they border the water, which is connected to the currency, right? Frequency, and that's why it's even called money, because it's really connected to the moon, because the moon's connected to the currency of the bank, the flow of the waves and the water, even to the flow of what we call women's monthly time is connected to the moon. So just a little frequency thing. Not always about chasing something, but learning to bring something in, learning to harness it, learning it to be drawn to you, because it's like a magnet. Magnets draw into each other, very powerful, right? When you put two magnets, it's like, get out of my way, we're coming to each other, we're getting together, we're connecting. But if you have something like that and they start repelling, they're pushing away, or they're not absorbing each other, and what happens is they repel. A little bit of this and a little bit of that. Always working on yourself, always being aware. We talked about tools and being aware, right? This is a little thing I want to do today. It's just kind of like a touch-up little thing that we've talked about before, and that little thing we've talked about before is being able to get what you need and know how to use your tools and be aware of the things you have when you have certain things happening. Especially connection of energies, knowing how to use the tools, knowing how to guide them and guide through the waves of water. And that's why I brought up the water earlier, because besides the currency, it's connected to a lot. First of all, you're 70 to 75% water, so you're like a walking water aquarium. You are. Think about it. You're 75% of that element, connected with electrical current, hence currency. And that's why I say it. So sometimes maneuvering through different aspects of what you go through, that's why knowing these tools, knowing situations, understanding your maps. Hold on, what'd you say? Understanding your maps. Meaning, know your terrain, know your direction where you're going. Understand that. Important. Why? Because you have situations like happening now. We're in retrograde, which seems like things are going backwards, and you might have felt a little lull or saying, things don't seem right. Seems something's catchy about me, right? That's why it's so important to use your tools. And one of the main foundations of getting ready to use your tools is staying aware, which is number one tool, right? Awareness will keep you connected to what's happening. So here's the thing. How often do you pay, remember that word, pay, attention to your measurements or to what's happening with you, in the fact that you're not staying outside yourself so much? Here's again, not staying outside yourself, learning to harness things within. And you say, what do you mean by that? Learning that this is a within game. Your power is within. Don't be distracted with everything that's without you. Am I telling you to stop certain things? If you feel led. But what I'm saying is, a lot of distractions out here, and there's this old Eastern Hindu story, and you say, well, what's that got to do? It does. The story is that the people wandered so far out of themselves that they did not know their map's terrain and the way back. They did not know their maps to themselves. It's about wandering so far out of self that you're so distracted with what's out you never harness who you really are within. And you're like, what you mean, D-boy? Yeah, exactly what I said is what I mean. Learning that this thing, and that's one story. Another story is you talk about the New Testament, you talk about the story of the Bible. He always mentioned the kingdom of God is within. Why do you keep observing outside of yourself at things happening? You know the signs and the seasons, meaning you know fall, winter, and some of the seasons, what leads to showing you the seasons are coming. You might even know what's the good hunting season. You may know when the rains are coming, but you don't have an inkling of within, because he said, for the kingdom of God is at hand and is now, but still coming. You go, well, that's kind of paradox. It is. The message is, you got to know this thing's within you. Quit looking outside of yourself for entertainment, for truth. It is not your barometer. You don't measure everything outside of yourself, because you'll wander so far out of yourself that you don't know. That's why all these things about having the temples, having a temple and having these buildings in the structure language is when you start getting and breaking down these things, you start seeing the structure in this language is talking about you're the temple, you're the body, these temples, this seat. And you start seeing all this stuff about destroying and raising it again is a continuous flow of you learning, passing one sense, and lifting another. Change, dying. Why I'm saying this is you got to get connected to yourself. And not just the entertainment, jobs. If you're married and have children, God, you have a lot to deal with, right? You have a lot to deal with if you're married and have children. No doubt that you have a lot to deal with if you're married and have children. Busy. You got schedules. But finding the time to find yourself, to get acquainted with yourself, because your structure of who you are is what's really needed to the most place of what's needed. So it's very important. It's very important. Utral importance, or you won't get it. You'll keep compassing yourself with this outside game of not knowing who you are. Think about it. So I'm saying this too, whether it's learning to deep breathe, breathing exercises. Breath is a foundation of all life. Notice that you can do without food a certain amount of time. You can do without water less of a time. You can do without air even less than a time. It is very important. Even connecting the periodic table has a connection to hydrogen, which is connected to ether, which is connected to breath. And why I say this, breath and breathing is a foundation. And I want to cut this off or may start it back up and add a part 2, because I'm at that 8-minute mark, actually 8 going on 8:30, 8:34 as I speak and going up. And I want to do this a couple times. I don't like to have long videos, but I will do double sections of it for the editing and stuff. So, hey, like, subscribe. I'm gonna follow this up immediately with part 2 of this. Remember, I'm talking about not wandering so far out of yourself and getting honed back in who you are and start from there. You can't have tools when you're wandering out, because you can't fix nothing when you're so far out. You got to get back first. All right, D-Boy, West Coast Uncensored. See you real soon.